The air in Kyle Richards' Bel Air home smelled faintly of lemons and polished wood, a domestic attempt at calm. Outside, the city sparkled under a winter sky, indifferent to the private storm brewing inside. The chandeliers cast geometric reflections across the marble floors, like fractured mirrors trying to contain the tension. Kyle sank into the velvet armchair in her living room, hands clasped tightly in her lap. Her pulse thrummed in her wrists as her mind raced, bouncing from one thought to another. Mauricio was on the sofa across from her, shoulders tense, jaw tight. Not angry, not sad, just distant. It was the kind of quiet that screams. Every detail about him that she had memorized over decades, the way his eyes crinkle when he smiles, the soft timbre of his laugh, the little ways he says her name, felt foreign now, as though she were meeting a stranger she loved by accident. "You need to tell me," Kyle whispered. Her voice trembled just enough to betray the steel she'd been hiding. Mauricio's eyes flicked toward her, then away. He opened his mouth, closed it again. The silence pressed in, heavier than the chandeliers, heavier than the house itself. I don't know where to start," he admitted finally, voice low, careful. "Everything's changed." Kyle's chest tightened. Change wasn't new. They'd survived betrayals, public scrutiny, the constant glare of reality television cameras. But this felt different. The stakes were private, intimate, and mercilessly real. Their children, Alexia, Portia, and Michael, were upstairs, absorbed in their own worlds, oblivious to the undercurrent threatening the foundation of their home. Kyle thought of them, their laughter echoing down the hallway, the casual rebellion of teenagers who think they are invincible. She imagined the moment when the truth would reach them, the fragile line between fear and courage twisting and snapping. Mauricio leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands entwined. I really tried to shield you from it, Kyle. From all of it, but you deserve to know." Kyle nodded slowly, bracing herself. She had lived through storms before, Marissa's meltdown, Lisa Vanderpump's departures, the endless swirl of gossip, but nothing felt as raw as this. This was their life, stripped bare, every choice, every secret, every compromise laid across the table. He began to speak. The words tumbled out in fractured sentences, each one a fragile revelation. Financial pressures hidden under public appearances, business decisions that went wrong, disagreements about the children's future. Kyle listened, absorbing each fragment like a careful archaeologist, piecing together the invisible cracks in the structure she had long taken for granted. Her hands trembled as she reached for the small glass of water on the coffee table. She needed something tangible, something to anchor her as her world shifted. Mauricio watched her carefully, eyes flicking between worry and remorse. "I never wanted to hurt you," he said. "I know," Kyle whispered, and for a moment, the words felt like both a shield and a confession. The doorbell rang, a sharp intrusion into the heavy silence. Their children, drawn by the sound, peeked into the living room, faces flushed with curiosity and the faint tension of anticipation. Alexia, the eldest, stepped forward first, her gaze flicking between her parents. She didn't ask questions immediately. She waited, as if measuring the room for the right words, the right tone. "Mom, Dad," Michael started, voice hesitant. Portia mirrored him, eyes wide, hands fidgeting with the edge of her sweater. Kyle stood slowly, drawing herself up, the mother's instinct kicking in. She moved toward them, reaching out a hand, offering the comfort of presence before words. Mauricio followed, careful, deliberate. He crouched slightly to meet their eyes. "I need you to understand something," he said softly. "Things have been complicated." The children's faces registered shock, confusion, a mix of fear and curiosity. Kyle watched their reactions carefully, every twitch, every micro-expression. She thought of the delicate choreography required to guide them through this storm, the need to balance truth with reassurance, honesty with protection. Kyle's mind raced through logistics, schedules, extracurricular activities, phone calls, conversations that needed to happen delicately. She pictured each child individually, forming a line in her mind. Alexia's calm composure masking the whirlwind inside, Portia's nervous energy, Michael's quiet determination. Each required a different approach, a different tone, a unique thread of connection. She called them together in the living room, hands on shoulders, forming a semicircle like a small council. Mauricio took his place beside her, a steady presence, though she could see the strain in his posture. He had always been the anchor, the unshakable force. Now he looked human, vulnerable. "We're telling you this together," Kyle said. Her voice was calm but firm. "Nothing is going to happen that we can't handle as a family, but you need to hear everything." The revelations unfolded slowly, carefully, each sentence measured, each fact delivered with intention. The children listened, rapt and wide-eyed. They asked questions, their voices quivering at times. Kyle and Mauricio answered with patience, honesty, and the quiet gravity of two people who had survived far more than any television script could capture. Alexia finally spoke. Are we going to be okay?" Kyle reached out, touching her daughter's hand. "We will be, because we're together, because we face things head-on. We protect each other, and we support each other. That hasn't changed, and it won't." Mauricio nodded, voice steady now. "Nothing's perfect, Alexia. But we have each other, and that matters more than anything else." Time seemed suspended, the house quiet except for the soft hum of the heating system. Outside, the city continued its indifferent rhythm, oblivious to the momentous shifts happening within this home. Kyle felt the weight of years, choices, and sacrifices pressing down. Yet she also felt the resilience of a family that had been tested repeatedly and refused to break. The children moved closer, each taking their place near Kyle and Mauricio. There were hugs, tentative at first, then more assured, as if the physical closeness could translate the emotional reassurance they craved. Kyle could see Mauricio relax slightly, the tension in his shoulders easing. He looked at her, gratitude and love mingling in his gaze. For a brief moment, it felt as if the storm outside, the storms of media scrutiny, business pressure, and personal challenges had all fallen away. They were simply a family, together in their living room, grappling with the fragility of life and the strength of connection. Kyle thought of the countless hours spent maintaining appearances on RHOBH, the facade of perfection, the cameras capturing only curated moments. Here, stripped of cameras and audiences, the reality was far more intimate, far more revealing, and yet it was also far more beautiful. Mauricio finally spoke, voice low but firm. "Whatever happens, we face it together. Always." Kyle reached out and took his hand, squeezing firmly. "Always," she echoed. The children, sensing the resolution, relaxed slightly, their previous tension melting into cautious smiles. Alexia leaned against Kyle. Portia reached for Mauricio's arm, and Michael exhaled a long, steady breath. The circle of family, once fractured by fear and uncertainty, was slowly knitting itself back together. Hours passed with quiet conversation, laughter creeping in, tentative but genuine. Kyle and Mauricio shared private glances, each understanding the unspoken. They had survived yet another trial. The cameras might capture moments of glamour and drama, but the true story, the story of endurance, love, and resilience, was found here, in the subtle connections, in the silent agreements, in the careful navigation of truth and protection. As evening fell, the city lights outside twinkling with indifferent brilliance, Kyle looked around her family. The tension had not vanished completely, but it had shifted, transformed into something quieter, stronger. It was a fragile equilibrium, yes, but a real one, and that was enough for now. Mauricio stood, stretching slightly, then pulled Kyle into an embrace. They held each other not as the characters the world saw on television, but as two people bound by decades of love, struggle, and shared history. "We'll tell the world tomorrow," Mauricio whispered. "Tonight, it's just us." Kyle nodded, letting herself lean into him. The cameras, the gossip, the scrutiny, everything could wait. Tonight, they had reclaimed their story, on their terms, in the only place that truly mattered, together. And as the night deepened and the city slept, the Umansky-Richards family found a quiet, hard-won peace. They were scarred, they were human, but they were together. And sometimes, that was enough to weather any storm.